Hi, my name is Paul Tilstone, and today I'm in conversation with Mark Avery from PwC. Mark, welcome.
Thank you.
A long-time friend of Festive Road, and Caroline and myself, we're delighted to have you on here today. Now, I'm interested to know what it is that you've chosen from the managed travel model to talk about.
So, Paul, I'd had a look at the managed travel model you sent out, and actually, for me, demand is the thing.
The only thing.
I think demand drives everything else.
Okay.
To the point where, for me, that triangle needs to be inverted.
Okay.
Because without demand, all the other factors don't really play into place. Because if there's no demand for a requirement to travel from a business, from an individual, why do you have policies, process, etc.?
Yes.
Or why, and why does sustainability and well-being become an issue? No demand, there's no business.
So in a sense, demand is a bit like it's similar to traveller centricity, isn't it? Is you're putting the reason for travel and the individual for travel right at the centre of the decisions that you make.
Yeah.
And would you say most travel programs have this sort of legacy infrastructure in place that they play to, they manage, and then they think about the traveller? And you're saying it's got to be the other way around.
I think so. And for a long time, the industry strived to look more like a leisure organisation.
Yes.
To deal with the traveller requirements, to deal with give a great experience, and in many pockets we do that really well. But ultimately, the demand comes from the need to travel, and that then and the organisation's requirement to manage that really becomes from that demand. Whether that's a financial driver, a sustainability driver, a well-being driver, a people driver. Without that initial point, where do you go? I think a lot of legacy programs have been built around cost.
Yes.
And around policy to manage cost. But actually having a balanced program that gives you both cost management, sustainable management, as well as people management.
Yeah.
That's how I think that's the complete package that you can actually think about managing the demand that then impacts all those other areas.
Yeah, I referred to it as triple P procurement: people, planet, profit, essentially. Although profit, we're talking about cost, but it's the bottom line and that contributes to the business.
Yeah.
So how does that manifest itself in the decisions that you make at PwC?
So I think the key point here is we've got really good engagement at senior stakeholder level,
right.
So at board level. And there's been a real push within the business to help our people understand the impact of their demand. And that then translates into the way in which we try to manage sustainability. And it's about giving the right information to the right people to educate them. One of the challenges that brings is getting the quality of information from the industry.
Yes.
So, I'll use a simple example. Airline sustainability, in terms of a lot of focus on carbon. But if you don't put that at a differential level
at the point of sale,
how can somebody make an informed decision? Around
it's
that
just
demand
it's just a bit of data, and that's it, isn't it? Really,
everybody's being treated with a DEFRA multiplier.
Yes,
tar brushes, I might call it.
Yes, exactly right. Do you think that focus on demand is applicable to every business, or because your product is your people, and in the consulting and professional services world, actually it makes perfect sense? But if you're in manufacturing, actually you come at travel from a different point of view, or do you think it applies blanket?
I actually think it applies across the piece, because depending on what you're trying to achieve in your business, if you've got a focus on customer and development, then demand is still going to drive that potentially.
Yes, okay.
If you've got a focus on sustainability, demand is driving your sustainability in a lot of ways. If you've got a focus on your people, it is there as well. So it really depends for any business, I think. Demand still should sit at the heart of why you need to travel and why you need to spend dollars, pounds, people's time, and carbon. All those comes wrapped up into the need to travel in the first place.
So what are the steps that need to happen for you to take that demand position? Do you have to reverse engineer your program? Do you sort of, alongside your existing program, you go in and say, well, let's do an in-depth analysis of why we travel, how it affects people, whether there's some inherent cost in the program that we've totally missed because we've been focused on the supplier negotiation and not whether these people need to travel for the business purpose or not. Mm-hmm. So how do you approach it?
It's a good question and not an easy answer, I don't think.
Well, we're looking for answers.
Yeah. I think there's so many facets. So, and again, it will slightly depend on the culture, as you mentioned before, depending on the culture of the business. But ultimately, people are traveling for business and spending money that is, for us, and I think for most organisations, every pound you spend on travel is a discretionary spend.
Yes, okay.
Until you realise a return on investment.
Which is really hard to measure sometimes, isn't it?
Indeed. But so if you just come at it from that point of view alone and say, okay, what are the key factors for us as a business, and then work back from that. What happened, or what's traditionally happened over many years, is I think we've built programs bottom up.
Yes.
And it's time to, I really think we need to flip that and start looking at it from a business requirement point of view and work backwards from there.
I really love the idea of looking at every pound as a discretionary spend, because there's a lot of rhetoric in the industry that says every dollar invested realizes $15 in return. And I think it's quite an unsophisticated argument. Yeah. It's not nuanced enough.
Yeah.
So the idea of taking the opposite view and saying it's a cost, and then you've got to try and work out whether there's a return, I think it's a really smart thing to do.
Yeah.
So within your business, does that mean you've got to build different stakeholder relationships as well when you're looking at demand?
Well, actually, a couple of things that we're doing particularly at the moment. One is around that. We've for a long time had, fortunately, quite good engagement at a senior level.
Right.
Partly because it is a big cost to us as a business. It's a big sustainability point for us.
Yes.
So there's a number of factors that are really key to us. Our workforce is key as well. So it keeps playing back into that. And I think having driven that through and getting that understanding at the business level, and particularly that point about all costs are costs until they become recoverable or a return on investment. That's been a real change for us.
Okay.
The idea, gone is the idea that client travel is okay and internal travel is not.
Which is a traditional professional services model, isn't it?
Indeed.
With a different policy for each component.
Yeah, and we've really we are moving away from that. I think the next thing for us is really, it comes back to the point about quality of data, but also presenting insights back to the owners of the business unit leaders, the financial controllers, and the business in terms of well-being and HC as well, about what our people are doing, and having really good data sets and then dashboarding, so that, again, travellers and businesses can make good decisions.
Yes. What does it do when it comes to the relationship with your supply chain? Does that focus on demand change the nature of the relationship? Mm-hmm. And does everybody buy into that? Or actually, it's a bit of a tough change for them mindset wise? Yeah,
it is. And one of the things that we're doing at the moment to try and to drive that change, because one of the big frustrations that we have a very large air program, and are you going to use air doing something similar to hotels? But in the air program, you have a lot of program, and traditionally, quarterly business reviews, etc., business updates. Let's look at the historical data. How have we improved? Or you're not doing well on that route, etc. That's all gone. We've done that. So we've now set up a 5 pillar model, and we're now working with the airlines to respond to those pillars, and then we're looking to rank them against those.
Okay.
And it's a much more blended view about whether this is a good company to work with, and to source from.
And then presumably match your ethics as a business,
absolutely,
and your culture.
Yeah, so we've got a split between customer experience, NDC readiness, and what we want to see from NDC. Potentially. So, and that's really a technology stream, if you like.
Yeah.
Cost is always going to be there. Then we've got quality, which is around the quality of product and service, and also sustainability in there. And then the last one is around fleet, which is about on-time performance, age of fleet, that kind of thing. And actually doing a blended measure, but then also within our reviews to actually sit down and look at those areas and what the organisations are doing in those. And then we're inviting the airlines to, on a 6 monthly basis, update their view. So have the conversations moved on and really focus our QBRs on the future rather than looking in the rearview mirror.
And I would imagine as a primary supplier, like an airline or hotel, actually that would be a really refreshing to have the clarity of vision to know exactly what you're measuring them against, for them to know what that is, to come in and review where you were and where you're headed. That would be a really amazing relationship. So
I think it will be. We're at early stages. There's a long way to go. And at the moment, we're not using it to actually differentiate. But that's where we're going. We
Okay.
will use it to differentiate
Okay.
supplier from supplier.
Well,
That's the intention.
I think we need to have you back then in a year's time or something. So
See where we are.
yeah. And as a wrap up, is that when it comes to demand, if you're a travel buyer out there, what do you think that they should be focusing on the next 12 to 24 months?
There's clearly a big focus around sustainability and well-being at the moment.
Yeah.
But a lot of organisations, particularly right at the moment, I think cost control is coming back
Right.
on the agenda.
Okay.
With what's going on in the world with coronavirus, etc. But I think demand captures all of that.
Using
So I
that,
would say
yeah.
focus very much on engaging with the business, engaging with the stakeholders so that they understand why and the benefits that can then return to them as a business, as opposed to engaging it on the basis of a pure travel program. The challenge with that is there's usually a wide stakeholder group you've got to engage with.
You've got to work out who you need to deal with, and that will change depending on company.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine as well, is it fair to say that if you do take that demand approach, you're actually engaging the stakeholders at a much more strategic level rather than talking about sourcing?
Indeed.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. The deals are the deals at the end of the day. The question then is, how do you maximize that for your business to give you a return on investment?
Listen, thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.